Hello, viewer. This is the Hybrid Fitness Summit, and my name is Ian Kay. I'm the host of the Fitness Racing Podcast. So, if you have ever listened to that, welcome to the Hybrid Fitness Summit. Today, in this discussion, we'll be looking at how you train when you're traveling. To help me with this, I have Paul Gillingham. Paul, thanks for making the time in your busy schedule for the Hybrid Fitness Summit.
Ian, you're very welcome. I'm honoured to be part of something so special.
The pleasure is all ours. And firstly, I've got to ask, how many Hyrox events have you been to so far?
Well, I've been to a few more than I've completed. I have at the recording, I have completed 38 Hyrox races, I believe, across all divisions that I am able to compete in.
38.
38, yeah, it's quite crazy when you think about it, to be honest.
And as well as Hyrox, you also do other fitness events. Any clue how many other fitness events you've taken part in?
Do you know what? Not many. So before I got involved with Hyrox, I wasn't a fitness racer at all. I'd never done a Spartan. I'd never done an OCR, and I had no idea how big the fitness racing space was. Like growing up, I was always football, played a little bit of tennis, went to the gym, but no, I've done a few Deckers, which I love. I really do enjoy. I've done a couple of other different events, but yeah, Hyrox is my main one by a large percentage.
One thing you are known for within the community is the number of trips you go on to take on fitness events, in particular Hyrox. Have you any idea how many countries you've been to for Hyrox or just generally?
Do you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and it I've been to a lot. Like I love traveling. For me, traveling is probably my biggest passion. So when I saw that Hyrox came on the radar, and there was races in various parts of Europe, North America, and now further afield, for me it was a win-win. So there's a lot of places that I've been to that I wouldn't ever have chosen to go to. There's a lot of places that I hadn't really heard of before I'd got involved with Hyrox, but it's I've probably been to close to 20 different locations across Europe. For me, I love getting on a plane. I love getting on a plane and just disappearing, whether it's for a couple of days, a little bit longer, a week, or when I went to Bali for 5 weeks. Just for me, travel is life.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not just Europe you've been to, you've also been to the APAC region as well, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. So I've been out to yeah, I've spent two trips in Bali over the last couple of years, where I've spent I think it was four weeks over Christmas last year, and then the year before that I was there for 4 weeks in the summer. But Hyrox is starting to get big over there now as well. Australia is really starting to take off, and I believe that I'm sure there's close to like a dozen countries in the APAC region that are either open or soon to be open. So it's a very, very popular destination for Hyrox, and I'm looking forward to racing over it in that area at some time soon, when I'm not sure yet.
So, getting to the discussion, what is your number one tip when it comes to training whilst traveling? We'll go straight in with that one.
I guess I've always used the rule, like, or I've always used the saying: if it's important to you, you'll find a way, and if not, you'll find an excuse. Now, training in Bali is very different. Like it's very humid. The temperature stays between like 28 and 32 degrees, 365 days of the year. The gyms are mostly outside, so you've just got to be prepared to just sweat. Um, I did a lot of classes last year, and it helped me because it was easier for me to get motivated being part of a large class than it was doing a session on my own. Now, I did do a few sessions because, me being me, I worked it out quite badly in the fact that I landed back from Bali on the Thursday morning, and then I flew out to Amsterdam on the Friday morning to race on the Saturday. So as the trip kind of got closer to race day, I had to kind of pull my finger out and start running a little bit more, and using the tank that they had over there. They didn't have a sled, but they used the tank. So yeah, I mean, I guess it always comes down to how much you want it, you know. And again, I'll kind of finish with the same phrase that I used at the beginning. It's, you know, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse.
So digging into that a little bit deeper, how do you actually plan out your workouts for when you're traveling? Like, do you have a plan in your mind before going away, or is it very much a case of getting there and seeing what's available?
Yeah, that, to be honest, the shorter trips, especially the Hyrox trips, like, you know, that you can always run. And generally, if I'm going away on a European Hyrox trip, I don't fly out until the Friday, which by then the work's done. If I am there on the Thursday, then I'll cycle on the Friday, or I'll run on the Friday. But there's no real need to do any big sessions. The American ones are a little bit different. So I like to fly out on the Wednesday just to kind of give myself a couple of extra days to get used to it. So Wednesday, I try and cycle when I land, and then Thursday again is just a run. And if I need to run on the Friday, I do. So yeah, I mean, with regards to Hyrox trips, there's not really a lot that I need to do apart from running. Longer trips abroad, it's just a case of like sussing out what's there when I get there. Most gyms will have treadmills, bikes, and various pieces of fixed resistance kit. So it's just a case of kind of working with what you've got.
So speaking of equipment, is there any essential sportswear that you make sure you take with you, or any other equipment that you may take? For example, would you take out a massage gun?
Do you know what? I used to always take like resistance bands, like always used to take resistance bands with me, because then I knew that if there wasn't a gym in the hotel, I can like wrap a band around the door handle, or wrap some stuff over the top of the door, and have like a pretty good workout. You can always push, pull, squat. You've always got your own body weight, so you're always going to be able to, again, squat, lunge, push up, burpee. Mountain climbers do planks. There's so much that you can do with your body. But now the only piece of kit that I take away is my trainers. If you wanted to take away resistance bands, then they would be good. If you've got a TRX as well, then that's a good piece of kit to take away, because again, it's just a case of like simply throwing it over the door handle. I do take my massage gun when I remember to take it, which at the moment is not a lot of times.
I think we've all been guilty of that. You're driving to the airport and then suddenly it's, oh my gosh, I've forgotten the massage gun, or like you say, the resistance band. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into resistance bands because they're one of those pieces of equipment that doesn't get enough love. But as you mentioned, they're really quite versatile. So firstly, how many resistance bands would you take with you? And then what kind of exercises would you use them for?
There's so many different types of resistance bands as well now, isn't there? You've got like the kind of the banded round ones that go around your hips. You've got the the you can cut them obviously and use them as a longer band. The ones that I've got have got handles on them. And during lockdown, I did a series of like live at 5 workouts. So every evening at 5 o'clock, Monday through to Friday, I did a live workout on Facebook, and one of the workouts was a resistance bands workout. So just gave people a load of different exercises that they could use using resistance bands. Now, just by putting it over the door handle, facing the door, you've got all your pulling movements. So like your reverse flies, your inverted rows, your lat work. Facing away from the door, you've got your chest flies, your chest pressing. Standing on a resistance band, you've got shoulder pressing. It's very easy to do bicep curls. Holding the hand, or holding the bands at the shoulder width, you can do your lunges and your squats. So to be honest, like most exercises that you can do with a dumbbell, you can do with a resistance band, and vice versa. So there's a full body workout that you can get. It's not necessarily specific for a fitness race, but if you're going away and you just wanted to kind of do a few exercises and feel a little bit better about yourself, then there's a ton of exercises that you can do for resistance bands that cover all muscle groups and all movement patterns in the body.
Makes a lot of sense because many of the viewers will probably already have their workout plans sorted out. But as you mentioned there, Paul, if your workout plan says, for example, 25 weighted lunges, you could just use the resistance band to do a variation.
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's always ways around things, isn't there? It's and again, going back to what I said earlier, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And even if you've not got a resistant band, go and get a couple of bottles of water. Like any kind of resistance, like in your arms, down by your side, across your shoulders, any kind of resistance is going to make the exercise a little bit tougher than just using your own body weight.
It can be difficult, can't it? Because we are creatures of habit in that if our plan says you need to do, say, a 30 kg back squat because you're trying to get speed in your squat, we will be looking for a barbell and weights that say 30 kg. Whereas, as you just mentioned there, there is a lot of stuff out there that you can just buy whilst you're out there, like your bottles of water that you can then use, and they weigh the same.
Yeah. You've got access. There's always access to some things out there, and if you can't get into a gym and you can't lift like 30 kg squats for speed work, then just do some jump squats. Go in, do a combination of air squats and jump squats and squat holds because it's going to give you that same kind of stimulus. It's going to give your legs that real good pump, and it's going to give you that fatigue feeling of what a 30 kilogram barbell would do for 8, 10, 12 reps.
I guess it also depends on where you are in terms of your training load, because if you're in the season, you probably won't actually need that much. Whereas if you're just taking a holiday in the middle of preseason, you might need to do a little bit more.
But that's the other thing, isn't it? It's what kind of time of the year that you're in. And some people go away now and just don't do anything. And if that's what they want to do, then great. There's been times where I've been away before and all I've done is swim, like not gone anywhere near the gym, not done any running, not done any cycling, but just swam for a week. And again, I think like sometimes we've got to look at it that unless we're being paid like a lot of money by various different sponsors, these fitness races are a hobby. They're second to, or third even, third to our full-time jobs and our families. And I think that when people have got the opportunity to go on holiday, it's then that question of wanting to train as opposed to needing to train. And I do think there's a big difference. And I do think people still don't really understand the need versus the want. Because if you're out of season, and by that I mean you finished your last race and you're further away than 16 weeks to your first race, you're still in that want to train. And that want to train could be anything or nothing, and that's the difference. It could be a game of volleyball, it could be a game of tennis, it could be going and trying a different sport, it could be a different class with some friends, it could be something that you want to do that you don't always necessarily get the chance to do during the season, because during the season it's the need for training instead of the want.
I think that's such a good tip that if you are on holiday and you do have a long time until your next race, it's a perfect opportunity to do some cross training in an activity you might not usually do, like hiking, for example, or as you mentioned, swimming or going on the beach and lounging around, or maybe running on the sand. That is surprisingly difficult.
Yeah, it's just the options, isn't it? And I think if you're going away for a week, it's a week. Like it's not going to kill you by not training for a week, and it's not going to be the end of the world for you spending quality time with your husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, and your kids. Like we know that the season of fitness racing, whatever that sport is demanding on the body. And I think you have to have like a supportive partner if you're going to do fitness racing. So if you're going away outside of the season, then there's the opportunity to kind of turn around to your partner and say, thanks for the support. Let's make this a good week. Let's make this a good 2 weeks. I may train every other day. I may just go for a run or go for a walk, or like you said, hiking, or take up some yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. It depends where you are in the world as well, and it depends what you've got access to.
I think that's such a good point, particularly about the impact that racing can have on your partner. And I know a lot of viewers will probably, when they go on holiday, they'll aim to train early in the morning or late in the evening to give that respect to their partner and the family so that they're not eating into family time. But I guess, Paul, you also have to have a realization that if you're doing hard sessions in the morning, that may mean that you're not as able to give it your all in that family time.
Yeah, but again, I think that it comes down to where you are in the season, and I think that's such an important part to look at, because if we look at now, for example, when we're recording this, and we look at the races that are between 12 to 16 weeks away, for those athletes, it's coming out of the want to train and back into the need to train. And if there's a holiday coming up, it depends on the level though as well, doesn't it? It depends on what you want from the sport. If you're someone that just wants to do the best for you, then you're going to be a bit more lenient with what you eat and drink and how you live your holiday lifestyle. If you're someone that wants to qualify for the World Championships again, get on the podium again, qualify for the elite, or if you're an elite 15 athlete, then the holidays get planned around the season, because that in theory becomes your profession. And I think if you look at like professional sports people, let's look at footballers, for example, they tend to go on holiday within the first 3 days of the season finishing, and they just get away and switch off, and they eat and drink and they do what they want, because they know when they get back, once pre-season starts, it's virtually impossible for them to then go away with their families.
That is such a good point about the footballers, which probably passes a lot of us by, but you do see them all leaving as soon as the season is over. And that's often a debate about whether there's too many matches in the off season. We're just coming off of European Championships. It's then qualification for the World Cup, etc. But this isn't a football podcast. So moving back to the equipment side of things, is there anything that you kind of look for in the hotel gym when you get to your destination?
Again, with Hyrox being my preferred sport, and to be fair, like the other races that I've done, it makes sense that there's a treadmill in there, even though you can go out running. But again, it depends on the where you're going, like where you are away, because even at like 6 o'clock in the morning, running in Bali was hot. It was really hot. So yeah, I mean, the treadmill's up there. I like using the bikes. I've done a lot of work on the bike this year, so it's always good to have a bike in there. And then a set of dumbbells, because again, there's so many different exercises that you can do with a set of dumbbells, whether that's two dumbbells or just one dumbbell. So I think if you've got access to a treadmill, a bike, and a pair of dumbbells, then I'm good to go, and I can design something that's going to kind of keep me ticking over until I get back.
Athletes who may not have your level of expertise, have you got any tips of the kind of exercises they can look at doing if they're not familiar with programming themselves? Again, I expect a lot of our viewers will already have programs, but for those who perhaps self-program, any particular exercises?
Very similar to what we talked about with the bands. So holding one dumbbell in that rack position, like you've got a goblet squat, you can do front squats. You can hold two dumbbells down by the side and go into like a suitcase squat. You've got your deadlifts, so you can either use one dumbbell or two. You can do one-legged deadlifts or two. Walking lunges with one dumbbell or two. If there's a step, which normally there is in a gym or somewhere, you've got step ups. You can With regards to like upper body movements, bicep curls, bent over rows, upright rows, chest pressing, either on a bench or on the floor, chest flies, and then again like body weight exercises. Again, air squats, jump squats, forward lunges, back lunges, side lunges, jump lunges, um, Superman exercises, back extensions, and all like the core exercises that you can chuck in, the mountain climbers, the planks, the burpees, the crunches. There's when it comes to body weight stuff, there's an endless amount. There really is like an endless amount of exercises.
I was actually fascinated that you didn't mention burpees until like the 30 to 40th exercise there, Paul.
Well, it's an I don't actually mind it. I don't actually mind the burpees, but I thought I'd get some other exercises in there first for people to kind of digest, and then maybe by the time I got that point, they're not too fussed about what I'm talking about.
Well, we mentioned hotel gyms, but I do know that you also will use local gyms where available. Do you have any tips for finding local gyms? I think you mentioned you actually did classes in Bali, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, but Bali's amazing, and give Bali a plug. If you get the opportunity to go to Bali, go to Bali. The fitness scene out there is just incredible. Like every single place, location you go in Bali now, they've got world-class gym facilities. The equipment over there is some of the best that I've seen. Um, but I always scout about before I go, and I think that's important as well, just to kind of find out what's close by, what gym facilities are close by. So then when you get there, it's a case of, you've got your list of gyms or fitness facilities or massage centers or spa facilities, and it's just a case of putting it into Google Maps and finding out how far or how close it is from your destination. Because I for the Bali trip, I worked where I was staying around the gym, so I knew where the gym was, and then I booked locations that were close to the gym. So one of the places that I stayed in Bali was literally no more than like a 30-second walk to the gym. I was out the door, around the corner, and in the gym. So for me, it was absolutely perfect.
That does sound so good, Paul. And in terms of registering at a local gym, do most of them cater for tourists? Like, do they expect non-locals to come and use their facilities?
Yeah, there's again everywhere I've gone in Bali. You go in, you can either pay and play for the day, you can book a 3-day pass, a week's long pass. If you're there for longer, they offer like 1 month, 2 month, 3 months. And what I loved about the classes over there is that there was a booking system, but they took whatever they wanted. They welcomed everyone. And I remember on Christmas Day we did a class. They handed out like Santa hats, and I believe there was like 89 people in this class on Christmas Day. It was magnificent. Like the community that they've got over there is just outstanding.
It sounds like such a great place, and I'll have to look into it one day. I suppose we should also give a plug to the Hyrox and the Deca affiliate program. It's always a good idea to check whether there is a Hyrox or Deca affiliated gym because they will understand fitness racing and should be able to help you out.
Yeah, and the other thing is that if there is a facility over there, then they're going to have the equipment needed for you to continue with your program and with your training.
Absolutely. And a big part of training is, of course, running. Like it or love it, viewer, we have to do a lot of running when it comes to fitness racing. So, Paul, other than avoiding the hottest time in Bali, what tips do you have for our viewers when it comes to running in a foreign country?
It is always best to do it at either end of the day. I mean, that's just common sense and that's just logical. But other things that you can do if you can't avoid the heat is just to break them down into like intervals. So even if you've got like a longer steady in brackets zone 2 run of say 70 minutes, rather than doing a full 70 minutes, it may be that you break it down into 4 lots of 17 and a half minutes, or even break it down into like 7 sets of 10 minutes. And that way you can stop every so often, you can have a bit of water, you can find a bit of shade, and then you can go again. With regards to intervals, again, it's always good to get into a treadmill and do that rather than doing it outside, especially if there is somewhere really hot. But what I love, I remember going to Valencia in May. I just took myself off for a few days in Valencia, and I found a track and just took myself off to the track for a couple of hours and just did some lap work. So it's always good to try out some. I wouldn't say new things because track work is a big part of Hyrox training. But even when you're away, like just have a look and see if there's a track nearby which you can go and use, and because they normally just let you go and use it for a couple of hours or an hour at a time.
Track is a super training tool, and also doing your zone 2 runs means that you're able to experience where you are in a different way, aren't you? Because it's almost like being a tourist. Well, you are a tourist, but you can see a lot of sights and perhaps go back the later on in the day when the shops are open, etc. Would you give any tips in terms of I don't know, respecting local culture when you're out there?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's something that you would look into before you go. Again, depending on what country you go to, some countries might not like you running like without your top on, or top off, should I say? And I'm talking about the men at the moment, because if women ran without their tops on, then there'd probably be a few crashes in the cars. So just look at like local laws and just respect local laws. But I think most of the places that you go to now around the world, exercise and fitness has become quite big, and everywhere you go now, people are looking after their health, whether that's through walking, running, cycling. There's more and more people on the streets now doing something, which is great to see.
A little tip I have is speak to the night porter if you're going out for an early run. They can tend to tell you some great routes and also can tell you those areas to avoid because unfortunately, most cities do have areas which you have to be a little bit more careful in.
Yes, um, yeah, they do. So again, it's a case of just keeping your wits about yourself. I remember I went for a run in Nice, and when I go running, I never take my phone with me. I just kind of just get out, and I always kind of remember where I was going. With Nice, there was a lot of like smaller side streets, and I got lost. And it took me a good few hours to kind of find my way back to the hotel. I don't know how I managed to find my way back to the hotel, but I did. So a tip would be to take your phone wherever you go, because if you do kind of find yourself somewhere that you shouldn't be, then you've always got access to maps to get you back out of any potential danger.
That's a great tip. And also make a loved one or friend aware of where you're going and approximately how long you'll be.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, always like if you're away with friends or family, just let them know where you're going, and yeah, as you said, like let them know roughly how long you're going to be.
You can see so much though. I remember once in Zaragoza when I was out there for a Deca event, I just went out down to the river and they have this fantastic church in Zaragoza. I'm underselling it by calling it a church, but I got to view it from all kinds of different angles. So, listener, just make sure you keep your eyes open when you're doing these zone 2 runs out in another country.
Do you know the other thing as well? Like on top of like training, like sidetracking a very, very small part here. But if you're going to go abroad for a fitness event, come back and say that you've seen something. Like there's nothing, and obviously money permitted, but make a weekend of that city as well. Because what I love about it is I normally go out on the Friday afternoon, I'll kind of keep it low key. Saturday, I'll race, but then Sunday, you've got the full day to go and see the city and see where you're at. And two of the best trips that I've been on since being involved with Hyrox is Vienna and Washington. Like Washington, I was out there for my birthday in March, and we had 6 days out there, and we saw everything. It was just a brilliant, brilliant trip. So if you get the opportunity to race abroad, whether that's through Deca or through Hyrox or through any kind of fitness racing, try and give yourself a day of actually seeing the city and seeing the sights.
I think that's such an understated tip. And I actually experienced it in my home country in that when I went to Glasgow for the first event in Glasgow, we stayed in a hotel which was a stone throw away from the arena. We spent all our time in the arena and in the hotel room and then caught the train back. And it could have been any city, anywhere. Whereas this time we got a hotel in the middle of the city. We went and did our race. We supported a few friends, got a little bit of media, and then spent a day just enjoying Glasgow.
Yeah, I just think it's part of the trip. It's whether you go out on the Thursday night and have the Friday, but then you've got to take into consideration like you need to stay off your feet a little bit. You need to make sure that you're hydrated and fueled. I just think like Sunday and or Monday is the perfect opportunity to get out and just see the sights, whether that's the hop on, hop off bus tour or just looking in your maps, just typing in places to go and see your next and just go and see them.
While we're on this topic, do you have any tips for racing in countries where the local language is not your first language?
Not really, and to be honest, it's like football. Like it's like the universal language of love, isn't it? Like the good thing about this now is that the numbers are in English. Like so, again, whether it's Decker or Hyrox, you know where you're going. The only thing you've got to kind of listen out for is at the end if you manage to get on the podium because everything's in their own language apart from your own name. But apart from that, I don't think that you can go far wrong like wherever you race in the world. I mean, I've never had any issues, put it that way.
Not exactly. And Google Translate goes a long way. So make sure you fully charge your phone and that you have an appropriate plan and make use of local Wi-Fi.
100%. Yeah, Wi-Fi will be your best friend when you're abroad.
It will be. And speaking of best friends, let's talk about nutrition because we talked about training, we talked about tips when it comes to running outdoors and finding your way around places. But I presume you do not take all of your nutrition with you, Paul, or do you?
If I'm going for so for a race weekend, half of my suitcase normally is food and drink. Like I'll take my electrolytes, I'll take my protein, I'll take my snacks because I like to try and have the same routine that I have back here. Now I'm only again if I race in Europe, I'm only normally away for a couple of nights, so it's not too bad. Um, Longer trips, again, it depends on where you are in the season. Like longer trips, like Washington, for example, I knew that anything that I needed to get, I can get in Washington. Like that was quite simple. And again, when I went to Bali, the food in Bali is out of this world. It's always made from fresh. The cafes in the fitness facilities are unbelievable. I always come back like so much lighter and so much healthier than when I went because it's just the food is just outrageously good over there.
You realize at this stage that when there is a Hyrox barley, you will not be able to get a ticket because you have sold barley so much.
I will be speaking to the Bali president myself to get a ticket.
Right, looking to wrap up this discussion, what about recovery overseas? You mentioned occasionally you'll have a massage gun with you, but any other tips?
um, Again, depending on where you are in the world, depending on what the temperature's like a sauna is great for recovery. I like lounging in a pool. Like for me, like after a race, like there's nothing better than just sitting in a pool and just doing nothing. I know like a lot of the it's not even the elites, but a lot of like the runners out there will like to go for a shakeout run the day after a race. I personally can't think of anything worse, but then I'm not a massive running fan. So for me, it's a case of just chill time. But yeah, I love sitting in a swimming pool. If I get the opportunity to be in a pool, I'll be in a pool.
You and me both, Paul. You and me both. Final question. Are there any other tips that we haven't gone through that you think the viewers should be aware of when it comes to traveling overseas and keeping up with their training?
No, not really. I think just do your due diligence. You know, just have a look at where the location is in retrospect to where you're going to stay. if you're out there for for a longer period of time, just have a look on Google Maps and have a look at what's around the area, i.e., supermarkets, shops, restaurants, and fitness facilities. And then when you get there, it's just a case of tallying it all up. So it doesn't take long to kind of put yourself a little list together of places that you want to be close to, or places that you need to go and see. Don't necessarily go over there blind. And then once you're there, as I said, like, just enjoy yourself, because there's nothing better than going abroad and being part of a fitness race where you can combine two of most people's biggest passions in life, really.
Absolutely. And I think enjoy yourself is definitely a lesson we should all learn to take on board more and more, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in, I want to get a PB, I want to do this. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned at the start of this discussion, we're doing this to enjoy ourselves. So make sure you don't forget to have fun, viewer. So, Paul, before we wrap it up, how can people find you on the various socials? How can they get in touch with you?
I am on Instagram, which is my full name, Paul Gillingham _. So by all means, head over there. That's probably the main. I am on Facebook again, just under my name, but most of the work that I do now is on Instagram.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion.
Thank you for inviting me on here. It's been a pleasure.
And viewer, thank you for checking out this discussion, and make sure you check out the rest of the fine topics we have on the Hybrid Fitness Summit. Speak to you all soon.